Week 11 was a good week, but Week 12 now we're looking forward to. And here's a few receivers on the waiver wire that can help you out. The first guy is Michael Pittman Jr. He was on the list last week, and he's on it once again here. Pittman, another good game. Phillip Rivers trusts him, and he had a long touchdown in this one versus the Packers for 45 yards. He had 3 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. And another impressive rookie in a stacked rookie draft class is Michael Pittman Jr. Since he came back, this offense has looked better. He was hurt for a bunch of weeks with the injury, but he overcame it, and he's looked good now in his last 2 games. Last week, 101 yards, and then here, 66 yards and a touchdown today versus the Green Bay Packers. So Michael Pittman Jr., he got added a lot last week, but just not enough. He's still available in 55% of fantasy leagues, so he's a guy I'm targeting and trying to get if he's available in my leagues this week. The second guy is the Marion Bird of the New England Patriots. Bird broke out with a huge game, and he was a top 5 receiver this week in fantasy with 6 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown, and he added 11 rushing yards. Bird, he's had some good games on and off the whole season. He made an amazing over-the-shoulder catch in the end zone from a nice throw from Cam Newton. And Bird here, he's available in 98% of leagues. He was injured for most of the season on and off, and now he's got a good matchup in Week 12 versus Arizona. He's a guy, I don't know if I'm going to go start him, but he's a guy you definitely should go get and stash on your bench because New England is just Jacoby Myers right now. Bird, Harry, he hasn't done much, and Julian Edelman's still on IR, so Newton, a limited amount of guys on that offense. They don't use the tight end much. So Bird, the targets I think will be there at a decent rate, and he had a breakout game, so even if you take a flyer on him, it's not that bad. I don't expect Bird to be added in many leagues, but his percentage should go up 10 to 20% this week in rostered. The next guy at wide receiver I'm looking at targets Deebo Samuel. Samuel, he should be back here in Week 12 after being out a few weeks again with the bad injuries to the hamstring and the knee. And Samuel, he's available in 49% of fantasy leagues. He was doing good when he came back, and then in Week 8 he went down with the injury. They had the bye week this week, and I think he'll return on Week 12 versus Los Angeles, in Los Angeles. San Francisco, they've been trailing a lot this season in games, and I think they're going to be trailing in this one. And Samuel, you know he's a gadget guy. They use him in many different ways. Even if Garoppolo's out, which he is probably the rest of the season, the targets are going to be there. The playbook and the schemes are going to be there for Samuel. Plus George Kittle ain't there, so that's more targets going to him and Brandon Ayuk. So Deebo, he's not a bad ad. And he's a guy out there in a decent amount of leagues, so I would go out there and get him. We saw what he did last year in his rookie year, and we saw flashes of it this year in the few games he played. The next guy is Curtis Samuel. Samuel had a bounce-back game after a bad performance last week with 21 fantasy points, 8 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown, and 1 rushing attempt for 4 yards. Now he's got Minnesota coming up in Week 12, and we just saw what a Dallas Cowboy offense did to them when they've been struggling pretty much the whole season with Dak Prescott out since Week 5. But anyway, Samuel, they use him in different packages. They use him in different formations, and he looked good this week. P.J. Walker was behind center, and even DJ Moore had a monster game as well. So I don't know if Bridgewater is going to play or not next week in Week 12, but it don't matter. Samuel's got a great matchup. He's a good pickup. He got dropped in a bunch of leagues. He's still available in 50% of leagues, so if he's out there in your league, he's not a bad guy to go out there and target and get here heading into Week 12. And the fifth and final guy, I'm going to look to get a receiver. Russell Gage of the Atlanta Falcons. Gage, he's been on off the radar most of the season, but his play depends on injuries. And Julio Jones, it didn't look good for him. He was out most of this game with a hamstring tightness again. And Jones, I don't know if he's going to be healthy. He came back in the fourth quarter on one of the last drives, and he hurt that hamstring again, and he hobbled off to the bench. And Russell Gage, the targets are going to be there. the Falcons, they're trailing a lot this season. They haven't been good. So Gage, if he's going to have a good role, he's a guy to go get. And he's available in a bunch of leagues. He had a decent game today, 7 catches, 58 yards on a nice target ratio, 12 targets. He's available in 93% of fantasy leagues. Now they got Vegas and New Orleans coming up again, and I think Julio, he could definitely miss this game in Week 12. And the Falcons, they're out of it too, so if his injury's severe enough, they're not going to rush him back. They're going to have him healthy, and they're not going to try to ruin his season at all. So Russell Gage, he's a interesting guy to go look at and try to get this week. So that's a few receivers you should target and try to get on waivers heading into Week 12.